People often ask me, like, why can't I just microdose myself? It doesn't seem that complicated. Like, why do I need a group and a coach and things? And I think so much of it is we've been so steeped in the narrative of talk therapy, where we come in and we talk about our trauma over and over and over again. And then they also can have such huge healing, which is frustrating to them. They're like, I've been talking about this for 30 years and nothing has changed. And then, I take mushrooms. Are you kidding me? And so what happens, though, is they start to heal through feeling, and they'll have an embodied experience. And because they think they have to work so hard to heal, they can't allow themselves it. They feel like they need to do something more than just to receive. I think why you need a coach, a guide, a community is to really help you let go.
Welcome to Modern Psychedelics, where we explore the transformations made possible through intentional engagement with psychedelics. This podcast will help you integrate high consciousness living into the everyday and deepen the work ignited by altered states. You can expect balanced and grounded conversations around therapeutic, ceremonial, and recreational containers. My name is Lana Pribic, your host and guide. I am a 3-time certified professional life coach, and I work with people who want to integrate higher levels of consciousness into their daily lives so they can feel more peace, fulfillment, and connection. After all, our time here on Earth is so brief, so let's make sure we're really living. The song you hear is called Lost Horizon by Peace Sign. All right, let's journey. Hello and welcome back, everyone. So today's conversation is one that I have really been looking forward to sharing with you. I'm so excited to be joined by Kayse Gehret, one of the most highly regarded guides in the world of microdosing and earth medicine. Kayse is the founder of Microdosing for Healing, a platform and community that served over 1,000 people worldwide since its inception in 2020. She has 3 decades of experience in the healing arts, and through her work, she's guided countless people on their journeys toward self-healing and self-discovery. In addition to working with individuals, Kayse also leads the Microdosing Mastermind, a program for wellness professionals looking to incorporate microdosing into their practices. So in our conversation today, we really dive into the nuances and some of the newer discoveries of microdosing. We explore some of those more subtle yet powerful aspects of the practice. Kayse really knows microdosing, and she definitely gave me a few light bulb moments while we talked. My favorite part of the conversation is the second half. We discuss how over-focusing on mental processing and logic and even talk therapy and that process can sometimes block true emotional healing. And we also talk about how energy and intuition play a vital role for as practitioners, but also for just being a complete human being that is making use of all of the resources that are available to them. We also touch on the topic of managing expectations and projections on the microdosing journey, or even honestly on the healing journey. And we also talk about how to have the right tools and support and how that can lead to a more transformative experience. I just really appreciated how Kayse brought such a grounded and insightful perspective, and I'm excited for you to hear this. And a quick note before we get into this interview with Kayse, if you're listening and you are feeling the call for deep inner transformation, I want to let you know that I am currently onboarding new clients into my one-on-one coaching practice. So I'm not your typical coach because I don't actually coach you. I coach your energy and your consciousness using a map of consciousness framework that I am an expert in. It's called the 7 levels of consciousness. Seeing life through the lens of energy has truly changed the way that I experience life and feel every day. Psychedelics are amazing for showing us and tapping us into these higher levels of consciousness, but after the journey ends, it can be hard to maintain that higher consciousness, that higher perspective. And this coaching methodology is the thing that has helped me the most with integration and really living from that expanded state of consciousness. It's not about thinking differently or being more efficient. That's part of it, but it's more about consciously choosing your energy and consciousness that you want to show up in. And that begins with a process of transforming the deeply held beliefs that are holding you back from doing so. So I work with you to shift your energy and evolve your consciousness to a higher perspective. The thoughts and actions will naturally shift in accordance to these inner transformations. This work is grounded, it's it's operational, it's human, but it's also deeply intuitive and transformative, helping you unlock ways of knowing that maybe you have not really tapped into yet. So if you're ready to do this deep work and start really living in alignment with the higher consciousness and perspective that you already know to be true, get in touch with me. I have a few spots that are currently open and available, and I would love to support you and hold you through your transformation. If you're ready to apply, go to modernpsychedelics.net/apply. And if you want to learn more about the program, I have a ton of information, including testimonials from clients who have experienced some pretty profound shifts at modernpsychedelics.net/coaching. And you can always reach out to me on Instagram if you want to hear more. Okay, let's get to this episode with Kayse. If you have been feeling low on energy, sluggish, or just out of balance, I have something to share with you. It's a natural solution that's been used for centuries, Shilajit. You may have seen this black tar-like supplement all over the internet these days, and that's for good reason. I personally started using natural Shilajit this summer, and let me tell you, the energy boost is quite impressive. And that's because Shilajit resin is a naturally occurring substance that is found high in the Altai Mountains, and it's formed over centuries by a gradual decomposition of certain plants and by the action of microorganisms. This stuff truly comes directly from nature. Shilajit is an incredible Ayurvedic supplement. It's packed with over 80 minerals and fulvic acid, which helps to detoxify the body, support hormonal balance, and enhance nutrient absorption, amongst a plethora of other benefits. Not only have I noticed an increase in my energy levels, but even my menstrual symptoms have become almost non-existent. I noticed that when I take the Shilajit more consistently, my body does not get the cramps and the PMS symptoms that I usually do. So my go-to way of using Shilajit is I mix the natural Shilajit Nutri honey in my decaf coffee every morning. And I like that the honey just adds a little bit of sweetness. I personally love natural Shilajit because they are known for their premium quality Shilajit, which is rigorously tested, contaminant-free resin sourced from the pristine Altai Mountains. If you want to naturally increase your intake of vitamins and minerals and really feel these benefits, head over to naturalshilajit.com and use the code LANA10OFF to get 10% off your first order. That's Natural Shilajit, SHILAJIT.com, and Lana, LANA, 10 off to get 10% off your first order. I've linked that all for you in the show notes. Thank you so much to Natural Shilajit for sponsoring today's show. Let's get back to the episode. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Kayse Gehret, microdosing maven, I'm going to call you. We haven't had a conversation about microdosing in forever on the podcast, so this is going to be a real treat for the listeners. Yes, so Kayse, welcome. Please just introduce yourself, anything that feels relevant to share.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And hi, everybody. Yeah, my name is Kayse Gehret, and I am the founder of Microdosing for Healing. We are a community, now international community as of 2024. We founded in November of 2020, offering microdosing group programs, and have since expanded into a membership community, a podcast, Microdosing for Healing podcast, and a professional mentorship program.
Amazing. What brought you into this work?
Oh, gosh. Luck, chance, serendipity, and destiny, I think all mixed together. I began microdosing personally, and I've been in the healing arts for many years. Heading into 2020, I had just opened our 4th healing art studio in Northern California. So I had been immersed in the healing arts for, I think I'm going into my 29th year now. And we were doing meditation, contemplative practices, body work, sound healing, yoga, all the things. But I always kept my microdosing work to the side from my studios. And when our studios were shut down in March of 2020, extremely abruptly, by May, I was like, we can't just do this Zoom thing sustainably for much longer. What can I do under the constraints we were under? In California, we were closed forever. And what can I do from home that is still healing and of service? And I sat with my guide in May of that year. And what came through was to create a microdosing framework and program for people to teach people what I had learned through experience. And so I created the program that summer, launched it that fall. And since then, we've had Yeah, almost 1,000 people at this point through that original program.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. So what I want to say, that's crazy that it's 1,000 people. That's a great thing to keep track of because it really puts a number on like how many people have been impacted. I want to just like ground this conversation in because I notice you use the word healing a lot. And I think it's in one of your programs. And I just want to like drop in with you to see, what does that mean to you? What does that word mean to you? And how do you define it?
I love that thank you for asking this. It's in everything I do. It has always been in everything I do, even before I really knew why. And I feel like I came fully into my why just this year, which is interesting. So healing, I think now especially, is foundational to everything. For us to go forward as a society, we need to make healing central in our individual lives more than anything else we do. I feel like looking back, a lot of my colleagues who've been in the healing arts for very many years say this too. It feels like all the work we have done up until now has been preparing for now. And so it's really, I feel like our culture and our society is so open and so hungry for healing in a way that we have not experienced in our lifetime before. So that's why healing is all over all my things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So how do you define it? What does it mean to you to heal? What is that process for you?
I think it's so many things. It depends on the individual person, but I think fundamentally it's stepping back into your wholeness, into your potential. I believe we all have the innate potential to come into ourselves, our healing, and it's kind of to me, our soul and our spirit, what we were meant to be, what we were here to do before all the world came in.
Yeah.
And got in the way.
That's a very psychedelically informed answer. I feel like that is what the medicines just continue to teach us over and over again, that it's all inside of us and that we have so many of these inner resources. I love that you said that you feel like you've just landed into your why this year. I feel the same for me. I'm like, wow, like purpose and mission is something that we spend so much time thinking about, or at least I do. I don't know. And it feels like it was literally like as recent as maybe this week that it felt like it like really dropped in, and everything around like the work that I'm doing as a coach and with psychedelics, and it all just like came together. And I was like, oh my God, there it is. So exciting. What is your why? How do you understand that to be now?
I love that. Thank you for that reflection. I had chills running up and down my spine in reflection of you sharing that. Yeah, I absolutely. What is my why? Oh, again, so many things. I think like a lot of people who come into this work, it was through my own personal healing and experience. I was a really sensitive kid. I was really intuitive as a kid looking back. And I lost my father very, very young. I was 7 years old. He committed suicide, and he was one of my soul people in this lifetime. And I spent most of my childhood searching and seeking, and I got very interested in psychology. I got very interested in religion and understanding human consciousness. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor for very, very many years. And I studied pre-med, and I did all the things and all the internships. And then I was called to move to California, move across the country. And I listened. And shortly thereafter, I discovered Esalen Institute. And as soon as I went there, there's so many people have the stories where they went to Esalen and their life completely changed. But yes, I was one of those people and discovered body work. And I was just really fascinated and drawn. It felt really natural. And I thought I'd do it as a hobby. And as soon as that world opened up to me, and that quote unquote alternative healing world opened up to me, I fully embraced it. I completely went down that path. I studied everything from somatics to Reiki to hypnotherapy to polarity throughout my 20s, just kept learning and growing and worked on thousands and thousands of bodies and spirits and souls over those years. And now in hindsight, I realized I was very much preparing for the work that I do today.
Yeah, it all comes together at one point and it's so beautiful. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but like sometimes things that you don't even expect coming back and like having value to you in some way, they like re-show up. Did you experience that?
Oh yeah, almost daily.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So cool. So let's talk a little bit about microdosing. You're the woman for this conversation. I guess, yeah, it's been so long since I've talked to someone about microdosing. And like I have my own practice with Kana, but it's a little less structured. It's more like intuitive. It sounds like you work with people in a very like structured way. So let's start here. Differentiate microdosing versus macrodosing to us in terms of like, why would someone go to one over the other? And what does microdosing have to offer people versus macrodosing?
Ooh, good question. It's evolved a lot. So from the time I started working with people in 2020, I remember it was right around after about 300 or 400 people were through, some of the patterns became very clear. And so the way I work with people has absolutely evolved as I have seen how the pace of people, why some people move through their process really quickly, while other people, it takes a few months for them to really connect with the medicine. So our protocols and practices have evolved over time. And I like to hold the work now where there's enough structure, protocol, and consistency to hold people and allow them the safety and to relax in their nervous system and their spirit, but also have enough fluidity and enough customization so that people can really spread out and have the kind of experience that they need. So I start with a protocol at the beginning because I feel like most people really thrive with some structure. It's kind of like, I liken it to meditation practice often. So when you're first learning to meditate, if you do it relatively at the same time every day for the same amount of time, you make the commitment to do it and make it special and similar day to day. One, it's easier to track your results and measure and differentiate what is the medicine and what are some other factors in my life. Also, it helps you develop a practice and a discipline and a routine that ultimately just becomes who you are. Just like meditation, like after you've meditated every day for years and years and years, you don't have to sit on your cushion every day. You're just kind of in that place. You can get yourself to that state. I've heard you speak. Kana is very similar where it's adaptogenic. Everybody has their unique experience. And then at some point, you're going to feel it's so connected to you that you don't need to physically microdose anymore. You can just do it intuitively and when you need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and I wanted to answer the macro versus micro. So now I have a lot of people who are pure beginners starting out, and then I have a lot of people coming in who have some higher dose experience behind them, which I love. So I think ultimately my dream of dreams is that microdosing, macrodosing, and mini dosing is all a part of someone's arc of experience. People will start in their own time, in their own way. If someone is a pure beginner, I think for 99% of people, it really benefits them to start with microdosing, to have a subtle, gentle introduction to the medicine, no matter which medicine you're using, and have that relationship evolve and deepen over time versus kind of having the experience of having so much content so quickly to work with. Particularly with mushrooms compared to other medicines, the mushrooms are going to take you where they want you to go. And so particularly when working with mushrooms, I think it deeply benefits people to start slow and low and have a community of support and reflection and mirroring and presencing with them to work through the experience. So that's what I love. And I've really seen people who come in and who have no interest in a journey. They're like, me? Oh, no. And then 6 months later, they're ready. Right. So it takes getting them connected to the medicine and developing trust in the medicine as well as themselves to move in. As far as the dosing, our community tends to dose, I think, on the lower side of what a lot of people would think microdosing is. So I always have tended to work with a lot of entrepreneurs, artists, creative people who are already pretty bendy and flexible people. They're just kind of they're already pretty neuroplastic folks. So it's surprising when I tell people where people practice at. I'd rather they start slower and then work up as needed. And a lot of people start very low, and that's exactly spot on for them.
What's very low for you for mushrooms?
So people will start, I say the majority of our community starts about 50 milligrams that we work with psilocybin. Most commonly golden teachers, but some people will start, especially people who have a long history of contemplative practice. I notice I've also worked with a lot of psychics. They start 10, 20 milligrams sometimes, And then other people need a much, much higher dose. Like we've had people who are more in the 250, 300, 350 range. Typically, it's because of long-term SSRI blunting. People who've been on SSRIs for 20 plus years really have to go that high very frequently to receive any gifts.
I always think that it's so interesting with psychedelics how dosing is based on your mind and like your mind's tolerance rather than a physical thing. I find that so fascinating, especially starting to step into the role of facilitating experiences for people. And yeah, learning about dosing is so interesting because it really isn't about like how much you weigh. It's about, how bendy, how open, how kind of like connected you are at your baseline. And like people who are a little bit more open just need a much gentler, softer dose than those who aren't. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
100%.
So yeah, talk to us a little bit about the micro versus macro dosing and who and when would benefit from each.
Yeah, I think the majority of people benefit by starting off slowly and working up to a journey. What's very naturally happened, which has been so fascinating to kind of watch it happen, in 2021, after people were microdosing about 6 months, they just all very naturally were like, we want to try a mini dose and go higher. And so we did some experiments. We were like, well, let's do 1 gram together over a weekend. We were all still locked down at home. So a lot of them did 1 gram together and then came together the next day and shared that experience. And we were really surprised how many people journeyed on just a gram.
Wow.
And I think a lot of that had to do with they had spent, not a lot was going on. So they were very focused on their practice. They were doing all kinds of other lifestyle complementary practices. So it was really profound. And I was like, there's something to this. And so over time, since that time, a lot of people very naturally start mini dosing. They work up, they kind of gauge what it feels like at 300, what it feels like at 500, what it feels like at 750, and note these changes and growth. And then I think I love it because I think it really helps make the ceremonial part of the journey so special to the person. When it's something you look forward to and you have spent 6 months, 9 months planning for, it's beautiful. And I think it's such a beautiful way to show reverence and honor to the medicine. And I think too, a lot of times we've had very, very few people who have had a lot of the quote unquote bad trip experiences when they have laid a foundation of microdosing, because I think they've already worked through a lot of the layers of fear, a lot of the threads of shadow work, of things that can kind of come out of left field and the feelings that can kind of come out of left field and catch you off guard in a high dose ceremony if you haven't already worked with the medicine already.
Yeah, perfectly said. Throughout your years of experience with microdosing, what are some of those foundational pillars that, set one up for a positive, impactful microdosing experience?
I think the group experience, it took me so by surprise how powerful the group experience was. I had done one-on-one work for so long. And yes, we had group classes at my studio, but I'd never done group work. It blew me away and continues to blow me away. It just amplifies everything. And people, I think, move. I started to recognize people I had worked with one-on-one in a group. They would move through their experience 6 weeks, what it would take 6 months.
Wow.
In a one-on-one experience. And so it's it's kind of like being in a stadium all together or dancing with a group of people. It just amplifies everything. And I think the reflection, connecting the dots faster, the beauty of speaking things out, your experience, a lot of times you can see people speaking out and then understanding, because so much of it is understanding. The medicine's always talking to us. Like even people who are like, not much is happening, I don't think this is working. It's like sometimes what's happening is the medicine speaking to you in its way. And so sometimes it's the feeling that is evoked is the medicine. Having the feeling itself about the medicine and the experience that is the healing in the moment. And sometimes people, once they get it, they're like, oh, and there's nothing more you have to do. There's so many pillars. I think what's beautiful is so many people, when they start, even within the first week or two, they're like, I've done this before. But there's something about this that's really familiar. So it's more of a remembering for a lot of people, and they're surprised at how familiar it is. And the two biggest things we see in the first few weeks tend to be cognitive healing We have so many incredible cases of nervous system healing and cognitive sharpening and uplift in the first few weeks. And also nature stories and animal stories, like people just nature coming alive, the connection to animals coming alive. Psilocybin, in my experience, is a very relational medicine. So other medicines, I think, are more concentrated and focused on relationship to self. I think psilocybin is that, but it is. And so many of the ways that I see psilocybin speak through people is through other and through relationship and our real world experiences with children, with animals, with plants, with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That totally makes sense that you see mushrooms as relational because, the mycelium network and the connectivity and all of that. You mentioned the power of the circle, right? The power of being in community and doing this work in the group. What makes that so powerful? What makes that so different than one-on-one work?
To be honest, I don't know. I mean, they have studied it and they have statistically proven it out. The Power of Eight book, I can't remember the author type in my head, but I read it a long time ago. And then once we started the groups, I reread it because I was like, oh, thanks. They were right. Let me reread that. And it's all about this magic number where the group is not too big, not too small. And I have really witnessed with group work, not overly meddle. If you are oftentimes a guide or a facilitator, you want the best experience for your clients that you possibly can. And one of the lessons for me that I've received from Spirit is just to set the container, set the intention, and then let people come in and let the mycelial work happen and do its thing over and over again. We're going to be doing our 30th group soon here. And every single group has been so unique, has such distinct themes. They all have things in common. And so each has its the little pockets in a forest. They all connect and they're all very much meant to be and they're meant to meet. So we have some wild stories too of serendipities of people within the group that were meant to know each other. But there's just something magical and innate. And I think mushrooms, they want us to be together.
Yeah.
I think they're happiest when we're together.
I love that. I feel like in groups, it's like you're triggered a lot more and you are confronted with so many different mirrors of yourself. And I feel like that process of just being constantly reflected in other people is going to just give you so much more material to work with, right? And that could definitely accelerate that process of healing and transformation. Yeah. When people are coming into your microdosing groups, what intentions do they usually have? Like, why are people coming to you? Why are people doing this?
I love this question. So 4 years ago, it was almost nearly exclusively mental health is what I saw on the intake form. It was COVID. I'm kind of going a little crazy, being locked down, having a lot of conflict in family, which is natural at the time. And a lot of people said they were leaning on a lot of unhealthy habits because of the mental strain. So depression, anxiety, and then some bad habits that they wanted to curb as they could. Now I still see a lot of mental health, but I see a much greater range, which I'm so loving seeing. So I'll see things with lots of relationship, just personal development, wanting to improve their relationships, I see a lot of people lately more than ever this year, who cannot fake it anymore. They're like, I've been in a relationship, I've been in this job, I've been living in this place for so long, and I have known it's not right for so long. And for some reason, this is it. Circumstances conspire to make it so intolerable and uncomfortable. They are needing and ready to make a big change by choice in their lives. A lot of people I see coming to practice for that. I see increasingly people coming for spiritual development, which is so beautiful. So I have always been intuitive, and with all of my healing practices, I sharpened that often unintentionally over the course of my career. But it wasn't until I started microdosing, and then particularly when I moved geographies, that connection to spirit really blew open to a whole new level. So all of people in our community have gotten to be part of that and witness that. And so it's a lot of people are very curious to get in touch with their angels, get in touch with their guides, be able to feel closer to lost loved ones. And so it's been really beautiful to see so many people moving outside of the mental health narratives and really embracing medicine practices for so many other beautiful things.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting in terms of like where we're at as a society with not just psychedelics and medicine and like the applications of it, but also like just where like a pulse check on the collective in terms of like, okay, where are we at? What are people really going through right now? Like what's important? Like what are the reasons that people are investing their time and energy and money into doing this work?
Yeah. Another thing I've seen this year more than any other year is wanting to move off of synthetic medications. So we've had a lot of people wanting to taper off antidepressants. We've had a lot of people on sleeping pills. Like I had no idea so many, particularly men over 40, need to drug themselves to sleep at night. It's so epidemic. And so we've had a lot of people who have been on trazodone and Ambien for years and years. Yeah. So I'm really seeing that. And so there's something to that. Wow. As you said, when you reflect on that as a culture, what's going on?
Do you have a tapering protocol in place? Or I guess where along the journey of getting off of medications do you take people in? How do you work with that?
We work as a collective tribe. Yeah, I have a beautiful network of colleagues who have specialized expertise in all these things. So we have psychedelic pharmacists who can support people and consult people on analyzing which medication they're on, because each one is going to be different. The dosages, each one is going to be different. How long you have been on it is hugely impactful. And so the pharmacist can advise on a tapering protocol with the antidepressant, and then they'll simultaneously be in our microdosing program to help support. There's so much information out there now, and there's a lot of misinformation out there now that we also, too, have a lot of people coming into our community just to kind of cut to the chase. They're like, there's so much information out there and I don't know what is right, because some says I have to taper off SSRIs before I can journey or microdose, others not. And so it's very helpful and been very supportive for people to know that microdosing can actually support them emotionally and help with some of the side effects that they would otherwise experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I had Benel and he's great. Okay, so people can be kind of coming in at different stages. They can want to start tapering or already be tapering. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who are on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds and, sleeping pills, they're just learning about more options that are available to them. There's just so much more psychedelic literacy out there now that people are learning more. There's more success stories that are being shared. And I feel like it makes perfect sense that people are coming to you for that. Mm. Yeah. So are there like certain conditions or states of being that seem to respond well to microdosing versus some that don't?
Good question. Yes. As I mentioned, people with nervous system conditions, remarkable. Headaches, migraine. Well, I shouldn't say that it's anything that the underlying cause is nervous system dysregulation, which is so many things. And we don't call it that. We call it addiction, or we call it OCD, or we call it eating disorders. But in so many cases, we heal the nervous system, we heal the symptoms. And so nervous system healing has been absolutely remarkable. So people presenting that, yes, PMDD and extreme PMS, reproductive issues. We've also seen absolutely incredible women who have PMDD where they have been basically not functional for part of the month, every month for decades, suddenly are able to can barely tell the difference between the phases for the first time. And that's within 6 weeks. So those have been remarkable. The ones that have been less so, that are kind of sometimes yes, sometimes no, are a lot of times we're seeing people who have long-tail COVID or COVID vaccine injury symptoms, where it triggered an old autoimmune disorder. A lot of people who had Lyme in remission, Epstein-Barr in remission, rheumatoid arthritis in remission, comes back sometimes with different manifestations. So sometimes people don't put together that that's where it started now because we're 3-4 years out. But when they look back, like, okay, this is what started. So they're hoping microdosing practice can help them heal some of those symptoms. That it's been, again, I feel like microdosing can help people carry almost anything better symptom-wise. But in terms of inflammation-related things, some of the pain, chronic fatigue, I've seen in a lot of women, rheumatoid arthritis, it doesn't seem to be effective in healing those things, but it is effective in how we're able to hold our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. So people are actually coming into your program for like physical conditions. Wow. That's really cool. And then what about, I guess there's not as many people coming for mental health things lately, but yeah, they are.
That's been pretty consistent.
More diverse.
Exactly. More diversity. Yeah. And I think they gave themselves permission, to not just think this isn't just for people that are something wrong. I had this really funny experience. I was saying goodbye to a lot of my friends and small business owners in California when I was moving. One of my friends there has a restaurant and cafe, and all that goes with that. And she was sharing how kind of off the hook lately customers had been a little bit more challenging and demanding post-pandemic. And then when she got quiet, she said, well, nothing can ever be as bad as the people you work with. I was like, wait a minute, is she talking to me? And I was like, I left and I was like, oh, okay, she thinks the people I work with are really messed up. But I was like, actually, it's actually the people and I'm sure you see this too, are among the most, I feel like the most competent, most mature people we have rocking around the planet right now. So it was really interesting to hear that people still hold these practices as they're only for me if I have something wrong to fix.
Well, yeah, that just comes from a very pre-psychedelic worldview, doesn't it? Where there's a podcast episode, pre-psychedelic worldview, that I've dropped.
All right, we all know that after a deep psychedelic journey, integration is key. And for me, that's where Kana comes in. It's a gentle, psychoactive daily ally that supports emotional balance, energy, and cognitive clarity. Kana is the flower of a succulent that grows in South Africa, and it's traditionally used by indigenous communities like the Khoi and San people for mood enhancement, stress relief, and spiritual practices. So Kana is an empathogen, meaning it enhances feelings of connection, open-heartedness, and calm. Some call it nature's MDMA, but it's also been well-researched by a pharmaceutical company called Zembrin, showing that some of its active alkaloids are beneficial for managing symptoms of anxiety and depression. The felt effect you will feel from Kana is similar to a psychedelic microdose. And while Kana is psychoactive, it's not psychedelic, meaning that it's completely legal in North America. But most of the Kana that you'll find out there is table grade, meaning that it lacks a potent enough alkaloid profile that will actually create that felt effect. Kana was a game changer during my really intense 5-MeO DMT integration. It helped me to stay grounded and energized while navigating some profound paradigm shifts and bringing them into my daily life. It was also an inspiring support for my mom, surprisingly enough, in managing her lifelong anxiety, which is why we decided together to start Kana Wellness as a family business. We are so proud to share that Kana Wellness is the first Canadian Kana company. So if you want to experience the benefits and the gentle love from Kana for yourself, visit kanawellness.com. And I have a code for my modern psychedelics family. It's Lana, Lana, and that'll save you 10% off your first order. We're currently shipping across Canada. And for our US friends, hang tight. We're working on bringing Kana Wellness to you as well. So links will be in the show notes for you. That's kanawellness.com, Kanna, and use Lana, Lana, at checkout for 10% off. All right, Kana Lana signing off. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand where your friend is coming from in terms of just kind of seeing life and, the experience of life as this is bad and this is good and this is a problem and this is not a problem. It's kind of like that black and white thinking where, with psychedelics folks, we see a lot more color.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's such a beautiful reflection, because I think too, when you do this work and you do the direct work and guideship and facilitation, you see the full range and expansive human experience, right? And it's easy to forget that most people don't see that. I know I teach microdosing with Psychedelics today, and they have a facilitator program. And I was sharing some case studies of some of the current people I was working with, what their presenting cases were, what was going on in their life. And they were a little bit quiet. Just said, what are you guys thinking? And one of the women said, I'm kind of terrified. Like, it terrifies me to think about working with, one had a child had just died. Another one had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. And that, I think, is part of being in this world, doing this work that you can't get from a book, that you can't get from a training program necessarily. It's the real world aspect of sitting with people and seeing people through this expansive humanity. And the more you sit with groups of people in a community, normalizing this range of experience, it's a really beautiful effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, because there can definitely be like a disconnect between real world experience and what like research is saying or what society agrees on. What are some of those misalignments that you've seen between your direct experience and maybe what research is saying or what is commonly believed about microdosing as a society?
Ooh, good question. One of the things that just happened that I was so happy to see, I was at the Vermont Psychedelics Society's conference, and Robin Carhart-Harris was presenting, and he was sharing some data, research, and slides that showed that underneath so many of the disorders that we call disorders is actually canalistic thinking, meaning like the little canals in our minds that most people just have, we swim in these canals. And the more canalistic our thinking, the more we are prone to this array of disorders that we talk about as symptoms, we treat as symptoms, and don't go much further than that. And so it was a beautiful moment where all of the people who do the direct work that were there, the guides, many who've been doing work underground were like, finally science is affirming what we have been seeing in real world practice forever. So it goes both ways. I think there's moments where science is affirming, and then some other things, like you mentioned a big one with body weight. A lot of people, and I've seen scientists, researchers connect body weight to dosing, or think there's a way to standardize dosing in this work. So that would be an example, and I think I've heard that a lot, and I have not found that to be true in real world practice at all.
Yeah, I could see that being true with MDMA maybe, but that's not really fully a psychedelic. Yeah, that's a good one. That's interesting. What was that study that you mentioned? I want to look into that. Canalistic thinking.
It's spelled like canal.
That is interesting because the work that I do as a coach, I use a map of consciousness. And this canalistic thinking is a lot of the type of thinking and showing up to life that I actually coach people to leave behind, and everything that comes along with it, like kind of seeing like conflict and black and white thinking, and the emotions associated with it are often anger, which makes a lot of sense because you look around on any street in the world and like most people are walking around pretty like angry or resentful about something. So that's super interesting. I'm like,
yes. And people often ask me, like, why can't I just microdose myself? Like, can I just do this myself? It doesn't seem that complicated. Like, why do I need a group, and why do I need a coach and things? And I think so much of it is, I've seen this so deeply in our groups and individual experience, is we've been so steeped in the narrative of talk therapy, where we come in and we talk about our trauma over and over and over again. And that has the opposite effect. I mean, talk about canalistic thinking. you're just burrowing that imprint for and over again. And so sometimes people are like, well, don't we need to understand it? And that's, yes, we absolutely need to understand it, but to a point.
Well, the mind wants to understand it. And most of us are living in our mind.
Yes. And so it hits this oftentimes in practice, especially people with very strong academic backgrounds, people who have spent lots and lots of years in talk therapy, lots of my clients who have been psychotherapists for 30, 40 years. It's hard to move out of that thinking. And then they also can have such huge healing, which is frustrating to them. They're like, I've been talking about this for 30 years and nothing has changed. And then, I take mushrooms. Are you kidding me? And so what happens, though, is they start to heal through feeling. And they'll have an experience, an embodied experience, and the medicine will speak to them through that, or they'll heal in their dreams. They'll have a really profoundly healing dream. And because they think they have to work so hard to heal, they can't allow themselves it. They feel like they need to do something more than just to receive.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. I think why you need a coach, a guide, a community is to really help you let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help you let go, understand the process, validate, mirror back. It's so incredibly powerful to have that type of support. Yeah, I'm thinking about like the perfectionists, the kind of like scientific materialists, the people who like just want to get it right? They just want to get it right.
We call them the resource passing, that another book. Did you read this research? Did you read this book? And they always want to pass the resources. I had a very intellectual group one time, and they went down the rabbit hole of the shared resources and took up like the last 10 minutes of the call just talking about books and research and this and that. And I was going to bed that night, and my spirit guide came through in an image, and she showed me, she's in this beautiful room, like cavernous room of books and books and books as far as the eye could see. And I said to her, is that Akashic Records? And she said, no, that's every book that has ever been written by any human. And look where you are. Noted. Got it. Yeah.
What did that mean for you?
Oh, just that we're not going to get to where we're going through reading.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. Through the human mind.
Yeah. I think that there is like a place for reading and nourishing the mind, but we have also kind of left behind our intuition and our feeling senses in favor of the mind. And I find that a lot of this journey of working with psychedelics is about bringing some harmony and balance to these different operating systems that we have access to as human beings, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I call it holographic thinking. In my coaching practice, it's how do we balance the logic, the intuition, and the feelings? And how do we use all of these kind of like with more awareness rather than defaulting to the place where we default. So some of us may default even to just using our intuition. Like, have you noticed that there are people in spiritual communities that are like, only intuition, and that's the only thing that matters, and then they're really ungrounded, right? So how do we kind of bring balance to that?
100%. Yes. I think a lot of when I intake a person, first talk with a person, I'm listening to what they're saying, but I'm also feeling out their energy. Mm-hmm. Because some people really are naturally very open and naturally very gifted. They may not be aware of their gifts, but they have them, and they're already operate in a very high frequency energetically. And a lot of them are medicated. Yeah. A lot of them have had mental illness because of their sensitivity with reality. So the practice is more about grounding them and rooting them to make their energy more solid. The vast majority of the people are the opposite, though. I think to lighten them to work. So as you just showed, I don't think there's a one size fits all. I think it is holographic work. Absolutely. That's a beautiful way to think of it.
Yeah. That's why, just as a practitioner, such as yourself, such as myself, like energy and knowing energy is so important, because people can say one thing, but their energy is saying something completely different. How does yeah, the energetics and the intuition come into play for you when you're working?
Enormously, enormously. I think it was such a gift. It was a coincidence, but also very meant to be, that I have spent thousands and thousands of hours giving and receiving body work in my life. It really prepared me to work with energy and to hold sacred space and connect with people on that level. To mushrooms, I think, very naturally help you become energetically more attuned and permeable to others' energy as well. My guide has been incredibly helpful with giving me guidance to how to uniquely work with different people's energy, and also studying human design has been so, is particularly around the energetics of that and how to support people best. I've had groups of all projectors in one group. I've had groups where it was all generators. And my guiding was completely different when I was working with them. Yeah.
Interesting. When you say my guide, is that like an internal spiritual guide, or is it like a mentor person?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, she's not on this plane. No, it's my spiritual guide.
Cool. How did you start connecting with your guide?
In hindsight now, I can see that she's been with me always. You know, she's pointed out to me so many things on occasion in my early childhood. As a toddler, I was like, oh, that was you. I see that now, and connected all the threads and the dots. But it began probably in my late teens, which interestingly, I had a grand mal seizure disorder for many years. So that's another thing I would like to share with people, that a lot of times your disorder is a key and a clue to your gift. So in hindsight, my intuitive development started at the same time my seizure disorder started. And so over the course of studying hypnotherapy and doing so much energetic practices and body work, I would sense her sometimes, and I would definitely receive clear instructions of move across the country. Okay, now move across the country sometimes, but it was infrequent. And it wasn't until I started working with mushrooms that it really expanded. And I realized that connection was always there. I just had to release a lot of fear and a lot of density, heal my own nervous system before I could tap in so clearly. And it was really last winter, after moving to a new area, I moved to a barrier island off the coast of Florida, that it completely opened to now my connection with her is to the point where I can kind of hear her all the time. Or if I need to ask something, I can ask her all the time.
Wow. That's so cool. Yeah, I love that the land and your proximity to nature played a big role in facilitating that connection.
Our geography matters.
Yeah.
So when I told people in California I was moving to Florida, it threw people for a loop. It really did. And it has nothing to do with the people there. It's, as you said, it's the land, it's the energy. Every space on this earth has a vibration to it. And so finding your home is often not going to be tied to a job or a muggle world reason of being there. It's really finding your spiritual home on the planet. And we've had so many people in our microdosing community move once they started mushroom practice.
Wow. Oof. I just got so emotional. Thanks for talking about that. Yeah. Wow. It's something that I've been thinking about so much over the years. Like, where is my home? Where do I want to live? And yeah, it's ongoing. It really is. Yeah. I really long to return to the ancestral home, like the Mediterranean region, that area. Yeah. Yeah. Is that where you're from?
Yeah. My root's Greek.
Oh.
So I think in us, I mean, I've seen that in other people too. When you are from a lineage that has very deep connection to the land, I think it lives with you always. So you always have this longingness. Like, I have yet to be in Greece. I'm going to go soon, but I have not been there yet. And I've had so many friends say to me, wait, because there's a good chance you won't want to leave.
Yeah.
when you have your feet on the land there, it will be really hard to leave. So I think that stays with you always.
Yeah, Kayse, I really feel that for you. Yeah, I'm excited. Report back.
Likewise.
That's amazing. Ooh, okay. Emotion. I don't know why that just brought up so much emotion, but I'm curious, since you've worked with so many people, I'm willing to bet that you've come across some clients who were maybe like critical or skeptical or maybe like expected more drastic results or more rapid results, or, like it didn't turn out the way they thought it would. It didn't go the way they wanted it to, right? Which I think is the first lesson in working with psychedelics. But how do you deal with that? And how do you help clients manage expectations and navigate expectations and letdowns?
This is a good one. I love this one's rich. It really is. Because I think there's so much, I joke with this with colleagues all the time, like we can learn so much when things are going well, but we can learn so much when they're not. There's so much there for us if we just are willing to sit with it and go into it and through it. So I think when I think about the less successful experiences, I think one is sometimes people underestimate the level of emotionality that mushrooms can bring forth. So if you have never felt really much before, if you've only allowed yourself a very little narrow bandwidth, sometimes it feels really overwhelming to people. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't happened frequently, but it has happened where people are pushed for sure to the level of emotionality. Expectations of speed. Oh my gosh, my colleagues who are outside North America just laugh at me with the expectations we have, in North America of how fast things are going to happen. 30-day challenges and 6 weeks. They're like, what do you think? What do people think that's going to happen in 6 weeks or a single session? And I'm just like, yeah, we have high standards here. We're very impatient. So they do. They want to know what to expect. Part of it, I think, is like that controlling, grippy human mind that we have, where we want to know what to expect when it's going to happen and what time frame. And so the idea that it's a very intuitive, nuanced, personal experience that you can't predict, particularly with mushrooms, is edgy for a lot of people. And then two, a lot of times I've seen with mushrooms, and it's so magical when it's happening, even though it's rarely pleasant on its face, is it speaks to people by evoking a feeling. And sometimes that can mean a lot of projection comes up. So that can be projection on the medicine, that can be projection on the group, that can be projection on me sometimes as the space holder. But when you're able to, and the client is willing to get underneath that projection and what's actually going on, it could be incredible breakthroughs can happen. Lifetimes of blockage they can work through with that. So sometimes people aren't ready to do it. So that can be challenging, but more often than not, especially with the group and the support around them, kind of presencing them and clapping them on, people are really willing to step in.
Yeah. I like the use of the word edgy and how feelings, and again, back to the holographic thinking, like feeling and emotions, it's another way of knowing that not many people are familiar with working with. So I love this idea that the mushrooms can help you know through feeling and help you process things through feeling. And I think that really is why it's such a medicine for these times, because we really do need to be taking the journey from the head to the heart as a collective, because right now, this society that has been formed out of humans living just in the logical mind, I mean, we've got some issues to tackle. And like, how do we get more into here? How do we get more into here? And sorry, I'm pointing at the heart here for people listening. And create society, culture, a world, relationships, businesses, life through that place. That's really what it's about for me, right? We kind of started talking about the why and mission and purpose. So yeah, mushrooms, amazing for bringing us back into the feeling and knowing through another way. Thank you for sharing that. How would you describe the energy and the resonance of mushrooms? You seem to love this medicine.
I do. Well, it's so funny. I was just at a dinner recently with a lot of other psychonauts and psychedelic industry people, and everybody was sharing their favorite medicine around the table. No one said mushrooms. It was hilarious. And so when I asked them why, the answers were so great that it was part of them said, I don't like mushrooms are my favorite because you never know where they're going to take you. And some of the other medicines they use, it was kind of like they were guaranteed to have this kind of experience. Mushrooms, it was like a wild card always. So that was a detriment in some people's minds. And also mushrooms have an ability to go straight to the thing, go straight to it. And a lot of people said, it took me back to that shame. It took me back to that guilt. It took me back to these shadow elements that some of their other experiences with medicine tend to keep them in the light. And so I understand that, but I love working with soul work. I love doing kind of the deep, gritty, earthy soul work for people to lay a foundation to then do the ascension work on. So one of my colleagues and close friends works with 5-MeO, and we have had some people start with microdosing, start with mushroom work, do that rich inner work, composting, not easy. And then when they started the 5-MeO period, it was beautiful because they were coming from really clean energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I find any really deep, earthy medicine will work as a great preceder to 5-MeO, because if you can get grounded and work through some of that human stuff, some of that content, right? You'll be much better prepared for 5-MeO, which has no content and is not earthy at all. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. My experience of mushroom spirit is it's big truth. It feels very truthful, real. As my friend Bina said, the real is real. And it's also exceptionally intelligent, the mushroom spirit. I've seen it's remarkable to be, and I often need to have my guide explain to me what's going on here with this one. And the mushroom is so intelligent that it finds a way to communicate to people so precisely, so uniquely, in a way that's only designed for them. And it would have been the only way for them to understand in that way. And so it's kind of part of the process and understanding is attuning ourselves to nature's communication versus our human way of communicating, which is very logical and linear and plain. I find the mushroom spirit very clever, often, very cheeky sometimes, very cheeky and very calls us out, oftentimes in a playful, loving way.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm intrigued that you use the word direct for mushrooms, because that has not been my experience at all with mushrooms. So yeah, curious what you mean by that, because I feel like the mushrooms always take me on like this kind of like windy, twisty kind of, let's go around this corner and look at this view, and then maybe you can piece it all together after.
Absolutely. When I say direct, I think I mean truthful. Okay. Yeah. It's not always the straightest line there, but I think the content it provides for you is the biggest, most direct honesty. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I see what you mean by that. Direct in terms of it's not going to lie to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Ready or not. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because I know so many people love mushrooms, and I certainly don't give the mushrooms enough love on the podcast. So thank you for that. Give the mushroom fix to the people. So talk to us a little bit about what you have going on in terms of your offerings and how people can work with you and who should work with you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. So my baby definitely is our immersion program. So we're about to do our 30th cohort of that. It's a 6-week deep dive. It's always between 8 and 15 people, depending on the energy of the group. And that is, I love them because it's truly immersive. I'm kind of in with people throughout the whole 6 weeks. Then we just launched a community, so a membership. So a lot of people, especially as we climbed out of the quote unquote pandemic era, but a lot of people were coming to me saying, I want to microdose. I want a community. I don't want to have to do a whole training program. I'm tired of reading on screens. I don't want to do a multi-month thing.
Yeah.
And so we created a very accessible, it's only $22 a month to join. We have we're open to 30 countries thanks to sourcing partners in each. We have a wonderful partner, collaborator in Canada, who we partner with in Canada to make it available to Canadians. And then I have a professional mentorship group that's so fun. It's all working professional microdosing guides working with all different medicines. We do not have Kana yet. Yes, but I am so excited to learn more about that medicine through you soon. And we also have a podcast. So we focus our podcast frequently on microdosing or bring in people who specialize in something that is very supportive to the microdosing process and journey.
Yeah, beautiful. So there's 3 different offerings there, I think I heard.
Yes.
Yeah? Perfect. Awesome. So we'll link all of that in the show notes for people. So when is the next cohort starting for
soon, October 17th.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if this will be out by then, but if it's not, they'll catch the next one.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. And where can people find you? What's the podcast name? What are your socials, website?
I am super easy to find given the spelling of my name. So I'm at Kayse Gehret on all the places. Yeah. I am on LinkedIn, Instagram. I am on Facebook when Facebook allows me to be seen, which is minimally some days. And also, yes, through our website at hello@microdosingforhealing.com. And the podcast is simply the Microdosing for Healing podcast.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was really fun. It was nice to finally get to sit down with you.
Likewise.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Kayse.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to and supporting the show. To stay in touch, sign up for my mailing list, which can be found in the show notes or on modernpsychedelics.net. If this episode sparked something within, please let me know by leaving a review of the Modern Psychedelics podcast on Apple and Spotify. This really helps to share these messages with those who need them, which is the whole reason why I do what I do. And if you haven't already, come join the ongoing conversation over on Instagram with other beautiful souls. We have an incredible and conscious community over at the handle Modern Psychedelics. And don't forget that the work begins after you come back down to earth. And I'm standing shoulder to shoulder, doing it with you.